y'all. Brief content warning before this episode begins. We're going to be talking about Dante's Inferno, and Dante Alighieri was a product of his time, and when he talks about hell, he does mention derogatorily homosexuality and suicide. We don't go into detail about those two topics. The homophobia, homosexuality, we go into detail of every episode. But the homophobia part, we briefly discuss, but if you're not in a space to hear about old-timey homophobes and mentions of suicide, then just skip this episode and we'll catch you next time. Hi, welcome to Infodumpies. My name's Brianne. I'm autistic, I have AuDHD, my pronouns are she, her, and if hell is real, I think my personal hell is being stuck inside of a Trader Joe's.
Hi, my name is Violet. I have AuDHD, my pronouns are she, her, and she called me Dante the way I go down on her circle.
And I'm done.
And our guest today is Sean. He's autistic, he has AuDHD, his pronouns are he, him. Violet's giggling.
Sorry, I'm laughing at my own joke.
He's actually reporting to us from the Ninth Circle of Hell, also known as Texas, in July.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
Yes, so I'm speaking, everything I do will be based on first-person experiences. I can open the door and have the flesh rended from my muscles with the talon of the 1,000-degree weather.
Got it. So it's a pretty a mild day in Texas then.
Yeah. It's one of the better Julys we've had.
Nice. Yeah, maybe a good day to go swimming in lava.
Yes. Bake some
cool
bread
off.
in your mailbox.
Yeah. Oh my god, I saw that old lady that was like, I'm gonna put some bread in my mailbox and see if it bakes, and then it fucking did.
There's no way I'd eat dirty mailbox bread.
No, never. Not in a million years.
There's no way I would eat the bread from the mailbox.
Tell you what, if I opened my mailbox and I found bread and not a spider, it would be wild, honestly. But both
back
is
in
more
our
likely.
Back in our house in Texas, we had a recurring wasp nest problem inside of our mailbox.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
When I was growing up, we had one of those mailboxes that had like a locking box on it, and you had to like unlock it at the bottom and open it. 9 times out of 10, you unlock it, open it, there's a spider inside on the mail. So the idea of baking bread in the spider zone, no.
Well, we're also going to be talking about a place where there's probably also spiders, and we're talking about hell today with you, Sean.
Yes, I do love hell. It is one of my favorite topics. I am specifically going to be talking about Dante's vision of hell in the Inferno from around 1320. So round about the time that Joe Biden was born.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know it's everyone's favorite topic, before we can talk about one of the greatest pieces of literature ever written, we have to talk politics.
Oh boy.
I know. I just really wanted everyone to feel comfortable. Because the whole thesis that I'm going to be presenting is not only is Dante's work the kind of thing that makes me go, I'm not qualified to diagnose you as autistic, but
he sets off your spectrometer.
And how? But the other half of it is that the reason the Divine Comedy is so good is that it is nothing short of a medieval burn book. It is nothing short of Pope Boniface VII is a fugly slut, do not trust her. And because of that, it is still entertaining to read, only if you know the context. Honestly, if you don't know the context, it kind of reads as a crazy person.
Sorry, I'm stuck on hearing a pope say, "It's not my fault I have a heavy flow and a wide-set vagina."
That's not far off from
Dante doesn't even go here.
Yeah. There's a whole thing in the second book where it really is. Virgil doesn't even go here.
I'm excited. I had not considered Dante's Inferno from this context.
I'm so stoked.
It's not funny in the same sense that you would turn on a stand-up comedian, but it is the kind of funny that you would send your friend on Instagram so that you could laugh at Ted Cruz.
Gotcha. So not like haha funny, but like oh dear God funny.
Oh shit funny.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
We start with Dante himself. Dante Alighieri was probably born in 1265, and we actually don't know that, but because most of his poetry was autobiographical, he couldn't shut up about the adventures he definitely didn't go on. We can kind of do math. He's born in Florence. His family's very poor. And when he's 9 years old, he meets a woman. Well, I say woman. She's 9 too. But he immediately begins writing about how beautiful she is and how in love with her he is. And he's 9.
Normal
and
9-year-old.
This is normal. This is normal, by the way. This is 12.
This is kind of sweet. Can you imagine seeing your 9-year-old writing a bunch of poems because he's just completely enamored with another 9-year-old?
Absolutely. It's adorable. And they don't get together.
Oh.
Yeah, they're 9. So.
No. Well,
Yeah.
but he knows of her and she knows of him their whole lives. This isn't like when I talked about Berlioz where like they didn't meet for 20 years. And
this
she
is
didn't
the
speak,
opposite.
She didn't speak any fucking French. Although she probably didn't speak any French. At 12, the ripe old age of 12, he gets engaged and ends up marrying probably his landlord's daughter.
The ultimate vengeance on a landlord.
Indeed. They get married. By all accounts, they're good, but he never writes any poetry for her, and he writes a shitload for Beatrice.
Oh.
Beatrice gets so many dedications. And in fact, I'm not going to talk about the Paradiso, but Beatrice becomes his guide through heaven in the heaven chapter of the Divine Comedy, because he's just like, she's perfect, man. I don't know what to do. She's just the best thing. I know I said there's politics, and I'll stop edging you on that. At this time, and there has been for about 500 years. No, 100 years. I can't do math. For about 100 years, there has been a political fight between two parties in Florence. Stop me if this sounds familiar.
Yeah.
The two parties were called the Guelphs and the Ghibellines, and surprisingly, the fight was not about who had the dumber name. It was
I've been on Team
more
Quibbling
about-
my whole life.
Some Dr. Seuss shit.
It is some Dr. Seuss shit.
It really is.
And the fight was mostly, grossly oversimplifying, mostly about who got to pick church leadership, who got to pick bishops, who got to assign the cardinal of Bob's city in northern Venice. Was it the king or was it the pope? The Guelphs...
So it's basically a church and state sort of battle.
Very much, but more specific, because at
Yeah.
the time there's no concept of separation of church and state.
Yeah.
It would be more akin to today without the religious overtones. Who gets to pick the Supreme Court justice, the president or the Speaker of the House?
Okay.
But not the people.
But imagine if that were right. But imagine if that were the big political fight for 100 years. And when I say political fight, I don't mean people bitch about it on the Senate floor. I don't mean there's riots in the streets. I mean a straight up war. There is bloodshed. This starts about 1125, and it starts after the disagreement between the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor is resolved. So
they worked it out on the mixtape.
It's a done deal. And that's really, honestly, because the whole Pope versus Holy Roman Emperor thing was a fucking excuse, as so many political fights are. City-states would come under the control of one side or the other. They'd say, hey, if you're a Ghibelline, stay the fuck out of Florence because we're all Guelphs around here. And so Dante and his whole family are Guelphs. They are on one side, and it really doesn't matter which side, except that it will come into play. And the Guelphs win, and immediately, within a year, split.
Oh.
So
into the Guelphs and the Smurfs.
Right. Dante's on one side, Florence is overtaken by the other side. He's in Rome at the time that they win the battle for Florence. He's in Rome talking to the Pope, and he's saying, hey, can we not do this? And they do this. And it's possible that the Pope actually sent for Dante so that he could spare his life because he was the one who sent them to sack Florence. It's possible. We can't prove that. He's never allowed to go back to Florence again. He dies. He dies, I think, 12 years after being exiled, never ever going back to the home he loved. Now, at the time, of course, Florence, there's no such thing as Italy. Florence is its own city-state, and they have as much national pride as Texas does.
Oh. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that puts that into big context.
Yeah. And Dante is heartbroken.
Too,
Dante's heartbroken over the loss of his homeland. Incidentally, he did get a pardon, Dante, eventually. It was 16 years ago.
16 years ago?
Yeah. Like Brianne, we were in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure he appreciated that.
I'm sure he did.
If they did a seance to inform him.
Indeed. Well, the fun thing about Italy, of course, is if you do the seance, you will get excommunicated.
Aw, damn.
Oops. Oh no.
Which we'll talk about in a minute.
What a catch-22.
Right. But he never gets to go back. All of this political shit, it's important because it's the backdrop for what he starts writing. Dante dies around, I want to say 1326. He starts writing the Divine Comedy around 1324. He wrote it and died. And he wrote maybe the most important piece of literature since the Bible and promptly died. But like you do.
Well, I'm done.
Just imagining Austin Powers. No, I'm spent.
I'm spent. Indeed.
I'm spent. Indeed. All right, well, that's done.
I'm not sure whether it was a directly puts his pen down and immediately croaks. I don't think it was, but it wasn't far off.
It's at least 5 minutes between.
At least.
Yeah, he had to crank
He
his
said,
dog one last time.
he said, I put on my hold on Tussie into that, and then he died.
And then he died. So he writes the Commedia. It's not called the Divine Comedy for another couple of years. I want to say it's Boccaccio who first calls it a divine comedy. Dante was just like, here's this. It's a comedy because it ends well. It wasn't comedy in the sense that we know it. It's not there to give you the giggles. It's as opposed to tragedy. And it is nothing more, nothing less than divine fan fiction. It's not the only divine fan fiction, Paradise Lost. It's also nowhere near the first. When I was doing some reading for this episode, I learned, because I just assumed this was a novel idea that Dante had. And no, it was pretty common for poets to go, hey, I went to hell and I saw all this and I got my life right. Ask me how.
Dante's was just really, really popular, I'm guessing?
There's a reason Dante's is popular, and it's because everything important is written in Latin.
Oh.
And Dante's writing in Italian. Dante's writing not only in Italian, but he's writing in the Italian of the common people. If you ever take a test in high school and it involves the Divine Comedy, the answer is it was written in the vernacular. That's what matters. And it matters because
it was accessible. It was accessible to the masses versus the other stuff written in Latin.
Yes, because even the priests at the time who were giving mass in Latin and were as fluent as you could be at the time, they weren't speaking Latin. They were reading Latin. They knew Gloria in excelsis Deo et in terra pax hominibus bone voluntatis. But if you said, "Where's the bathroom?" they'd go, "I don't know." Mamma mia. Defecavi in camelopardalis is my go-to example for everything sounds better in Latin because it means I shat on a camel.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, that sounds like that could be like a state motto or something.
Yeah.
And like they just didn't look
Texas.
it up.
For Texas.
Yeah.
We don't have
Texas
camels, we eat them. Not only is it vernacular, it's not always nice. Sometimes Dante does a swear.
Cool,
And,
hell yeah.
Oh my God.
and again, this is about 1320, I think. 1320, 1325, somewhere in there. And he is saying stuff. Not only is he saying stuff that's dirty, he's saying stuff that's dirty about the church. He doesn't get excommunicated, probably because he dies before he has the chance to be excommunicated.
Yeah, right. It sounds like he's like, I better dip before things get too hot for old Dante.
If I had to guess, the Pope probably went, "What the fuck is this shit?" And they went, "No.
Unless
you're good."
The Pope said, "Time to get excommunicated, bitch." Pop, pop.
That's also possible. Unlikely, possible. But one of the things that really speaks to me about the way Dante envisions hell and purgatory and heaven, and this is not actually what he believed the afterlife was like. Like Dante didn't go in and go, "I think this is what heaven is like, this is what hell is like."
Yeah, just like for our other podcast, I don't necessarily think that the afterlife is a big cubicle laden office.
Exactly. It's all allegorical and all fictionalized. It's there to serve a point, and that point is Boniface VII is a fugly slut.
That might be the title of this episode.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's a good line.
It's exactly the kind of ordered and specific system that you would expect from an autistic person. And I say that because it's exactly the kind of system that I would come up with. We have to do a little bit of numerology. You have to know 4 numbers. 3 in Pythagoras' world, which was still a big deal at the time. We're still in pre-Copernican Europe. 3 is the Trinity. It's the divine. 4 is the world in the symbology of numerals for Pythagoras. 7, I know Brianne's not great with math, is 3 plus 4.
Oh,
it's the divine plus the worldly. If you've ever seen the picture of Jesus, the icon of him pointing up and pointing down, that's the idea sign. Of on earth as it is in heaven. The heavenly gang sign. So we have 3, we have 7, we have 4. 4 is not nearly as relevant, but that's how you get to 7. And 10. 10 is everything, because it's 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, which encompasses everything in the cosmos. So these are all going to come up in every part of the story. Wow. The Divine Comedy is split into 3 books: the Inferno, the Purgatorio, the Paradiso. Each book has 33 chapters. They call them cantos. They're like verses, but big.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Plus, the Inferno has 1 introduction and makes it an even 100, which is 10 times 10. And each book has a structure of the afterlife: hell, purgatory, heaven, and it has 10 levels. There are 7 levels, each one with being a sin or a virtue, and they're divided into 3 categories. There's 2 additional levels that Dante wanted to make sure we mentioned, and there's 1 climax location where all of the most important stuff happens, and the
Say again?
I'm not Catholic, but I still think I get excommunicated for saying God and climax in the same sentence.
I went to her climax location, if you know what I mean.
Actually, the important person at the climactic location in Purgatorio is Beatrice.
Hey, good for her.
And she's the one who takes Dante from purgatory to heaven. The rhyme scheme is also really cool. This is not as much an autism thing. It's just, if you've ever written any poetry, the hardest thing in the world is making the rhyme sound good without sounding like Barney. The rhyme scheme is 3-line stanzas, and they interlock. So it's ABA, BCB, CDC, DED, and so it kind of forms this chain as it goes down the poem, all the way through each chapter. And now the stage is set, we can talk about the most important, I think the single most important depiction of hell until today's lucky winner.
Oh.
It's that and The Good Place, and that's it. The Inferno starts 20 years before it's written. Dante specifically sets it in 1300, and he does this so that he can put prophecies in the book that will definitely 100% come true, because they're going to come, because he knows. Like, he at one point will say, Dante, you're going to be exiled from Florence. It turns out he was.
It turns out, whoa.
Yeah. Dante finds himself in a dark wood, and he's being chased by 3 beasts, and as one does, when he runs from the beasts, he runs across Virgil. Virgil is the author of the Aeneid, which is basically the epic poem, not unlike the Iliad. It's a sequel to the Iliad from Troy's side, and it tells of the founding of Rome. Aeneas was it doesn't tell the founding, it tells the history, the prehistory of Rome. Aeneas was the ancestor of Romulus and Remus. And much like the Odyssey, it's a story about trying to get your way home, and it is considered the greatest piece of Latin poetry of all time. I've read most of it. Don't tell my Latin teacher I didn't finish it. But Virgil says, hey, we're going to go on a journey. And Dante, of course, when your hero shows up, says, okay. And they go to the edge of Jerusalem. And beneath Jerusalem is the gate of hell. It's there because it's the Hellmouth, the original Hellmouth. 100% absolutely. And that's where the famous inscription is, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." They go into hell. But it's not just the Christian hell. You know those books and TV shows and movies that try to synchronize every possible religion together and add some math and add philosophy, and also this is why D.B. Cooper disappeared. D.B. Cooper's not in the Inferno. This is one of those, because it has, for example, the 5 rivers of the Greek and Roman afterlife in hell. It has mythological creatures guarding some of the circles of hell. And it's sort of Dante's way of saying, hey, I know all this shit. You should listen to me. And he continues to do that. Even in the Purgatorio, there's a spot where he makes an aside to say, hey, I know geometry.
I often do that, just on my
an angel shines on his face, and he says, hey, I know how the angles of that shining work. It's basically just a kitchen sink of all the stuff I know. So he goes into hell, but we don't immediately start with the torturing. The first area is the vestibule of hell. They're the non-committal. They're the ones, the agnostics, and by the way, before I go any further, anyone who's hearing this, all of these judgments are Dante's, not mine. Go you. Except for the bit about, well, we'll get there. The non-committal, not only the agnostics, but also those who didn't take a side in any moral debate. So when everyone is telling you to speak up and you say, I don't want to, this is you.
So the first chamber is for the apathetic.
The apathetic, yes. You never took sides. You're not being tortured in the same way as everybody else, but you are being relentlessly chased by wasps.
So it's...
So just Texas, is that?
Yeah.
So it's like...
Yeah, specifically mesquite.
So it's kind of like the medium place and the good place.
Kind of, but...
Worse.
Without Cannonball Run 2.
Oh, damn. That's the only...
Oh, man. That's a huge loss, though. Huge loss.
When they go in any further, they get to the first circle. The first circle of hell is Limbo, not the party game. I don't know why the party game is called Limbo. It has nothing to do with this place. Limbo is, in theological doctrine, it is where those who are not sufficient to be tortured, but those who have not earned heaven, go. And for Dante and, grossly oversimplifying, large portions of Catholicism today, that includes those who came before Jesus. That includes unbaptized infants. That they do not share in God, and that's the only punishment. It is the true medium place. There's no torture there, it's just separation from God. Now, there are certain Reformation-era theologies that say, no, that's all of hell. There's no lake of fire, it's just separation from God.
Yeah, that's what I grew up being told too. That the true part of hell was separation from God. That's what
I've always been told. Presbyterians, we don't really talk about hell.
Oh, the evangelicals love it.
It's not important to what you're doing right now.
Yeah. So I grew up raised loosely Baptist, and I remember being told at Sunday school that there's heaven and there's hell, and you're going to go to one or the other, and there's not an in between place. And then also, and this is a fucked up thing to tell a young kid, because I the whole thing. I asked what hell is like at the time. I think I was like probably 8 or 9 years old. And they said that, every cut or scrape you've ever gotten in your whole life will open back up again.
They read Dante.
Yeah.
I was just like, that sounds awful.
It does sound awful.
That fucked me
That's
up
why
a little
focusing
bit
on hell is a terrible thing to do. The only thing of importance that happens here is that Dante, in a true moment of self-awareness, Virgil says, hey, this is where I live. I've gotten a day pass to guide you through hell, but this is where I live. I live in limbo because I'm way before Christ. And he encounters Homer and Lucan and Horace and Ovid and Virgil, and he says, hey, Dante, you're number 6 of the great poets of all time.
Yeah. I'm sorry, that's very, very funny.
Yeah.
That's funny that Dante would write that about himself.
Absolutely.
That's like me writing a book, and there's a part in it where it says Violet walks into a room and there Stephen King welcomes me with open arms and says, an equal writer.
Yes.
My thing was about to say, like, I show up in the afterlife and Terry Pratchett's like, you're in the club, kid, and just has me sit down at a table with, has me sit down at a table with Ursula Le Guin.
Absolutely. Now we get to hell proper. Hell for realsies. The second circle is lust. In lust, the sinners are trapped in a storm, in a whirlwind, like a whirlwind romance. And that's what they do on the circle of hell.
That sounds kind of
The circles are basically steps down, and at the very bottom of hell is the center of the earth.
I like that he didn't consider being horny that bad.
Yeah, horny's like a step beyond just nothing.
Yeah, lust is the first circle of hell and the last circle of purgatory. It's the most minor of the deadly sins for Dante because
it's pretty chill.
He was horny for Beatrice.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, it can't be that bad.
Because have you seen boobs?
Have you seen boobs? Have you touched boobs? Come on, bro. It's only the first circle, clearly.
Right. The gluttonous come after that, and there's an icy river. There's a lot of ice in hell, which is consistent with the thermodynamics that we know today.
So actually, that kind of brings up something. You mentioned, so there's circles of hell, and as you go deeper, you eventually get to the center of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like Dante's a flat earther, is what you're saying. Because circles...
No, in fact, he's not.
Oh, interesting.
Because we're not really going to talk much about the Purgatorio, but Mount Purgatory is exactly the opposite side of the earth from Jerusalem, which at the time is still considered the most holy place in the cosmos. Now, we're still pre-Copernicus, so we know the earth is round, but we don't know that it goes around the sun. And in fact, when we get to heaven, which we won't talk about, but the circles of heaven are the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, the sun, all the way out to the stars.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting that they call them circles when they are spheres, technically. But I guess they...
Well, for hell, it's more of a funnel shape.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
like a graduated funnel.
I'm just imagining one of those diagrams from your middle school science book with the parts of the earth just labeled like horn dogs.
Here's the horn dog crust.
Yeah, and then going down,
horn dogs,
and you have the little cross section like a cake.
Hectonic layers, if you will.
Indeed, hectonic layers. The gluttonous get trapped in a river. It's an icy, putrid river, and it's constantly raining, and they can't do anything about it. They're just being swallowed up. Circle 4 is where we start getting to the people that you guys and I start going, maybe they should be in hell, because that's where the greedy ones are. The hoarders and the wasters. Not hoarders like I have 15 copies of Rumors by Fleetwood Mac.
The ones who are like, I could solve homelessness in the world, but I'm choosing to send myself up to space for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
For 3% of my net worth, I could solve homelessness in the world, yes. And I don't have proof of this, but I'm pretty sure the hoarders and wasters are where Charles Dickens got the image of Jacob Marley, because their punishment is each other. The first 4 circles, it's very important to notice that not only are everybody's sin is punished in a poetic justice way, but the first 4, they're punishing themselves. All they have to do is get out of the river. Or in this case, stop hitting each other with their chains and chests with which they're weighed down, and they'll stop being punished. But they never will.
Yeah, that concept of being stuck, floating together, punishing each other is something that I used for today's Lucky Winner. Because I love when hell's conceptualized like that. No, you all are so fucking shitty that the greatest punishment we could give you is forcing you to spend time with each other.
Yeah. So what happens in the hoarding and wasting circle is a great big wall of death, which is something I'm told is a thing at metal concerts. And everybody's got chains and gold chests, and they just ram each other.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
Stop it.
Open this pit up.
A mosh pit, yeah.
But less fun.
Yeah. It's a mosh pit
all of
at
these...
a Smash Mouth concert.
God.
Yes. No, not hellish enough. It's a mosh pit at a Spin Doctors concert.
Oh, God.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I want to make a video of someone like crowd killing and moshing to Two Princes.
Indeed.
There you go.
Throughout all of these circles, and I didn't put it in my notes because it's very much something you have to look at the footnotes for context of. Dante keeps meeting people he used to know or he'd heard of, or who were involved in this political fight. And he's like, interesting. Bob's in hell. That's noticeable. Oh, look, Steve's in hell too. Sucks to be Steve, jackass.
My bitch neighbor Diane.
My bitch neighbor Diane is in the circle of the lustful.
Oh,
because she's been doing it with Mark.
Who would have thought Jerome from the DMV, who took a little too long,
ends up in the circle of the sullen, which is circle 5.
There you go.
Circle 5 is the wrathful and the sullen, and they also are fighting each other, but in the river Styx. Dante gets ferried across the river Styx and goes, oh, look, there's a fight going on.
A bunch of...
This
it
is
sounds
where
like a bunch of emo people. Wrathful and sullen.
Yes,
it's
exactly that.
So there's a bunch of people fighting in the river?
In the river.
So it's
on the
water
surface is the wrathful, and the sullen just sit below the surface going,
That's me.
And again, they can get out anytime they want to, but they never will. Their punishment is themselves.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, because I was going to say, if there's people fighting under the water, it's like that's kind of counter to a lot of the depictions I've seen of the river Styx, where it's like eerily calm and still with a bunch of souls.
It's very different. I don't know why Dante chose the Styx there. Again, all five of the rivers are present. Acheron and Styx and Cocytus and Phlegethon and Acheron are all in hell. I don't know why he picked Styx for that one. Ultimately, I'm not sure it matters.
Yeah, it's a great band, you know.
It is a great band, with and without Dennis DeYoung. That's the first section. That's upper hell. You know, they have neighborhoods. Circle 6 is sort of upper hell, sort of not. They're the heretics. Specifically those who said the soul is not immortal. Specifically those who said... Heresy is really weird to try to conceptualize outside of...
Christianity.
Being in church. Outside of being in church, because we don't have any context for how it hurts others.
That's a good point.
But it's against God. Therefore, Dante says, fuck you! And they're trapped in tombs that are on fire.
Oh, God.
What if I'm fond of a lot of these sins or prone to them? Do they just decide the one that you did the most is where you go?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, interesting.
So
it's okay to do the other sins as long as you do mostly...
As long as it's mostly lust.
As long as it's mostly fucking.
Mostly lust, yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. I'm gonna be real greedy, but fuck more than I'm greedy.
Real lustful.
Got it. Oh my God, that's how Jeff Bezos is getting away with it.
Uh-huh.
No, just kidding.
Well, when we get to Circle 9, we'll talk a little bit about Jeff Bezos. In Circle 6, Dante meets just a shitload of popes.
Oh, shit.
So this is where he's like,
fuck you?
He's like, fugly slut.
Like, your holiness, fuck you. And your holiness, fuck you.
It's like, oh, look who's here.
Look who's here.
Here's your little princess.
Look who still gets to walk around. It ain't you. Circle 7 is a category all to itself. Circles 7, 8, and 9 all get sub-circles because Dante considers there to be 3 kinds of sin. There's want, there's violence, and there's fraud. Circle 7 is violence all by itself. And it begins with the violence that you're thinking of. If I say, hey, going to hell for violence, you're thinking, oh, yeah, murderers, warmongers, Netanyahu, all of these people who are submerged in a boiling river of blood. And how violent you were, is how deep you are in the blood. Circles 2 and 3 are a little harder to deal with. The second ring of the violent is the suicides.
Oh, because he was old-timey Catholic, yeah.
Old-timey Catholic.
Yeah.
The suicides are transformed into trees
that
are attacked by harpies.
Oh, well, there.
And bleed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like, the tree thing doesn't sound so bad, and then it got worse.
Yeah, there's no way around. Product of time, still problematic. Just like there's no way around Ring 3. Ring 3 is the violent against God, the blasphemers, the violent against art, the usurers, those who take out crazy loans, or those who, give crazy loans and demand,
loan sharks.
Student loans.
Sally Mae, that's where Sally Mae lives.
And the violent against nature. who are the queers.
Oh no.
I thought you meant like those who hurt animals.
Yeah.
I guess that's on a different.
That would be in the first ring.
Yeah,
Oh,
I thought
okay,
I was
gotcha,
talking
gotcha,
about
gotcha.
some Fern Gully justice shit, but no.
No. What's really interesting, and this is to Dante's credit, is that the violent against nature has the queers, but there are also specifically homosexual souls in purgatory on their way to heaven.
Oh.
Like, there is a section of the last terrace of purgatory that is specifically homosexual people.
Well, that sounds like Dante's just got a plot hole, essentially.
Well, a bit, and I've tried to ask him about it, and he hasn't been forthcoming with an answer.
To me, that says maybe he's conflicted on what the church said about homosexuality versus maybe he met some homos or did some homo stuff in real life himself, or you know what I mean?
Well, there was, again, this is 1320. There was no homosexuality.
Yeah, no one was doing any of that.
No one was gay.
Nobody was gay at all, ever.
There were no gays.
But like he's such a he's such a self-insert character that it does make me wonder if that's just like, oh, he's conflicted on his thoughts about it because of the church and maybe life and stuff.
Yeah, or unless
and it's been a while since I've read the Purgatorio, but very specifically, he mentions Caesar by name among those who did it with dudes. And it's always male homosexuals because there were no lesbians
they're
until...
very good friends, and they're just practicing for when they get husbands.
Until Anne Hesh invented lesbianism. It may be, and again, this is all speculation, because I haven't read the Purgatorio in 15 years. I first read the Inferno as a junior in high school. It was actually assigned for my mom's class. And then I picked up the Purgatorio and Parody, so after that, and read those as a senior. It's possible that the ones in hell are the ones who were the slutty gays, who just did it a bunch.
These were the felchers. These were the ones who were real nasty.
Couldn't keep it in their pantaloons.
Yeah. This is what happens to those who eat ass, is what it is.
This is
where you go when you eat it from the back.
Yep. My mother asked me where she could listen to this. I'm going to tell her she can't.
Sean's mom, if you're listening to this,
I'm sorry I get your son to say some crude things sometimes.
Yeah, he's a very good boy. It's all our fault.
The eighth circle is the fraudulent, and it's the most complicated because Dante had a shitload to say about fraud. Because he felt like the people who took over his city-state did so by fraudulent means. He basically thinks that you're misleading the entire population and the whole city's going to hell because of you bitches.
Makes sense he would be sour about fraud.
Oh, and he gets real sour in this one. I'll go through a couple of them briefly because this is where he really starts to shine with creative punishments. Like the hypocrites who wear golden robes that are lead on the inside and forced to walk around being worn down by these fake robes.
So they bought them on Temu.
Yes. Yeah, Temu robes. There we go. The sorcerers and fortune tellers who tried to see the future, whose heads are on backwards.
That's cool.
That's good.
Yeah. I just think that was cool. That's clever.
The flatterers who were full of shit are now, and I'm quoting Dante here, stewing in a river of shit.
Oh, God.
Like, Dante uses the word shit, well, the Italian word for shit. This is where Dante starts going, motherfuckers, I am serious. The sowers of discord, not the app, the just general discord, are cut in half.
Yeah.
From, and this is again a quote, split from their chin to the mouth with which man farts.
He said from snooter to tooter.
From snooter to tooter.
Oh, that's really good. I like that.
And I think my favorite one is the simoniacs. They're the ones who buy and sell church favors. Oh, you want your sins forgiven, huh? 20,000 and you got it taken care of. Or, oh, you want your buddy to be a bishop.
Like the
I can make that happen.
vendors of indulgences and... all of the people just collecting money in the name of God.
And this is 250 years before Luther.
Wow. So this was really spicy stuff.
And 750 years before Luther starring Idris Elba. They are headfirst in baptismal fonts on fire.
Ooh.
Forever.
Oh, interesting. So sorry, just to make sure I understand, a baptismal font is like the little pool where they dunk you?
Yes, and depending on your denomination, it can be a tub, or it can be, if you're Presbyterian, a Dixie cup.
Ours was a big bathtub behind the pulpit.
Mine was a 7-Eleven big gulp.
Yeah, as a Presbyterian, it's technically wasteful to baptize a child because we pour a whole bunch of water and use a milliliter.
For real though, I was actually baptized in the pool outside the church.
I believe that. The last circle is the one where Dante breaks his own rules. Because he has people who are still alive in there. Like, he's like, I want to say fuck you to this guy, but he's not dead yet. So I'm just going to put him in, and I'm going to make up the rules as I go along. Because they're the traitors. The traitors against family, the traitors against their country, the traitors against their guests, and the traitors against their masters. And at the very bottom
traitors Joe.
The traitors against Joe, yes. At the very bottom, these are all just trapped in a river of ice. And the traitors against family are legs trapped, and the traitors against country are trapped up to their heads, and the traitors against their guests their faces are visible, and the traitors against their masters are just completely encased in ice.
Oh wow.
At the very bottom is the source of the ice, which is Satan flapping his wings and cooling down the river.
While chewing 5 gum.
No, not chewing 5 gum.
Oh no.
Chewing 3 people.
Oh.
Satan has 3 heads.
Oh, wow.
And he's got 3 heads, and he's trapped in the ice that he's making. Again, there's that whole concept of you could get out if you would just shut the fuck up and realize the problem. Satan is flapping his wings, and in one head he has Brutus. In one head he has Cassius, the 2 people who Dante blamed for killing the most important person in Italian history. And in the center head he has Judas, who of course killed Jesus, or betrayed Jesus. They are the 4 people in Dante's world who are the most deserving of hell. Judas, Cassius, Brutus, and Satan. This is the end. Dante gets there, and he and Virgil go, okay, you ready to go to purgatory? And Dante goes, we're in the middle of the earth. What do we do? And Virgil goes, come on. And they start climbing down the leg hair of Satan to the other side of the world. Literally.
The leg hair of Satan.
Literally. So Satan is, of course, massive in this cosmology. Like, at least twice as big as Shaq.
Whoa.
Okay.
Yeah, right. And they climb down Satan's legs through the center of the earth, and they climb out the other side at the base of Mount Purgatory on Easter Sunday morning. Then we get to Purgatorio, where all of the levels are the 7 deadly sins, which were pretty new at the time, if I'm not mistaken. Not the sins, the list. They'd heard of
sinning,
like wrath before.
So this might be a silly question.
Ask.
What is purgatory in this context? Like, because I always compared purgatory and limbo, and I thought they were kind of the same thing.
They're frequently used interchangeably, but they're not.
Okay, interesting.
Now, again, I was not raised Catholic, so my my view is secondhand at best.
That's fine.
Limbo is not somewhere you leave. It's just separation from God. Purgatory is the penalty box. It's where you go before you can only get to heaven if you're perfect. You're not perfect. So you go to purgatory to purge the sin before you go to heaven.
Okay, I understand now.
Purgatory.
Thank you. Interesting.
Purgatory is time out.
Say, hey, your heaven is loading.
You have to get more. You have to get more EXP before you can.
You have to get more EXP, and largely, I think this is why the Inferno is more interesting, because bad people are just way more interesting. And listening to someone say "fuck you, fuck you, fuck you" is just way more interesting than people going, "Well, I tried my best and I fell short. I was prideful." so I'm going to work. Well, I tried so hard, but I was envious, and I'm going to work. And then, of course, heaven is just bizarre. That's the Inferno. I cannot recommend it to be read highly enough because it is beautiful poetry, even as it is bitchy. I recommend, there's a translation by John Ciardi from, I think, the 30s that tries to maintain the rhyme scheme and does what he can for the meter. You know, it's English, so there's only so much you can do. But it really does a good job of also, even for the 30s to now, you know, it's almost 100 years old, it even does a good job of translating some of the connotations of Dante's tone. Like when he says things like, it's a river of shit, it's not, oh, there's some excrement lying on the ground there. What he means is, you fuckers.
Shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to see if my Libby app has that as an audiobook, because that sounds like something they'd have, and I think I'd want to listen.
I do recommend, I know that people are people, but I do recommend reading visually simply because of the need for footnotes. There's a lot of missing context because it was designed to be read by people in the 1300s who knew who Boniface VII was and what he had done.
Yeah.
So to get the full context of what's happening.
You know, do what you want. You and your listeners are all smart people, but if you don't want to stop at the end of every audiobook chapter and go, the fuck was he talking about?
It would be cool if they could do kind of like you would have those Disney books as a kid where you'd read along and there was the tape and you'd have that do-do-do-do sound when you're supposed to turn the page. It would be cool if audiobooks had an interactive component where it's like, hey, here's a little chime. That means there's a footnote. And then you could be like, oh yeah, boop, and then listen to the footnote and go back. Somebody work on that.
Yeah, get back to us.
I also, you know that modern remake of Romeo and Juliet where it's set in modern day?
Yes.
I wish they would do that for this.
They did.
I think that would be excellent. They did?
About 15 years ago, they did it's actually a paper puppet show animation. Dermot Mulroney plays Dante.
Excuse me?
You heard me. Dermot Mulroney plays Dante, and they've updated the list of souls. For
Fancy
example,
man?
Dick Cheney is in hell. Remember how I said there are souls that Dante went, well, I want to say fuck that guy, but he's not dead? They changed whoever that dude was for Dick Cheney. Oh my god, it's good. Let me take a look real quick.
He gets his ears shot on a hunting trip forever.
Yeah, and James Cromwell.
I was trying to remember who Virgil was. It's so good.
Wow, yeah, like all of the paper puppets that you described, it all looks like it was like hand drawn with.
It was. It's not animated in the sense that it's filmed puppets.
Okay, cool. That's on.
I'm gonna have to check this out.
That's on the agenda now.
And it's obviously the poetry is lost because it's not poetry.
Yeah.
But it's so good. Yeah, I'm looking at some of the names of the updated sinners: Strom Thurmond. Spyro Agnew.
I can't think of Spyro Agnew without thinking of Futurama.
Mussolini. Yeah, it's it's better than it has any right to be.
Wait, so I think Matt Walsh plays a Fox reporter?
Yes.
Oh
no. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check this out.
Yeah, you should.
Well, thank you, Sean. I now want to go read the Inferno. I think it's kind of mandatory for me as someone who has written and likes to write a bunch about hell. And I think I need to go read it. Thank you, Sean.
And
thank you guys very much.
I learned a lot about hell, and I learned essentially what purgatory is. I thought it was literally just limbo, but you kind of blew my mind there. So,
and
hell yeah. No, I have a whole new perspective on Dante's Inferno now. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, guys.
It's the housekeeping section. If you want to help us out, please tell other people about the show. Post about it in your autistic groups, in your groups about old Italian literature. If you're in one of those for this episode, I don't know your life, but we don't pay for ads and we don't take paid advertisements, so the way we grow is entirely by word of mouth. So even if you're telling, 3 or 4 people about it, you're still helping 3 or 4 more people discover our show, and that's great. Now, if you are wanting to help us further, you can leave a cute rating and review, and subscribe on the podcatcher of your choice, because that helps us get in the charts more. It helps us get recommended to people based on similar listening stuff. You can help the algorithms on those platforms show us to more people by doing something very simple. Now, if you're in a place to support us monetarily, I highly recommend you go check out the link to our Patreon page for the Mix No More Patreon in the show details. It starts just $1 a month, and you can join the Discord server that we're in, where we hang out and share memes and talk about special interests, and we play Jackbox games. We played one the other night where I think one of my all-time TKO shirts came out of that. It's lots of fun, and I super recommend it, and at higher tiers on our Patreon, you can get a shout-out, like our friends Randy Lovings, Rachel Rachelson, Sewing Seraph, B. Trossler, Helen Clifford, M. Mosen, Lutzi, Nicole Valdivieso, Natasha Naves, and Carl G. Brooks. If you want to see what Violet and me and Sean are up to elsewhere, you can look at the show details and see our social media handles if you want to go see what we're doing on the internet. But I think that's all I've got for y'all right now. Until next time, clever sign off.